Hey guys, it's Tom Box here, and I'm here with Yvonne.
Hey guys.
So, Yvonne, you have one of the more menacing decks, and I believe you're going to ruin online play for everyone for the next little bit. Too bad for you guys playing my Yugioh Pro. What deck are you playing?
So I'm playing a Mystic Mind Exodia deck that also goes second instead of going first.
I'll follow up with this one with my own variant of the deck as well. I mean, actually playing online, you guys hated me for it. I got swore at a lot. But you were the one that inspired me to build a deck like this just to mess with people online. And what made you play Exodia of all decks 2019? ORCUST is everywhere.
When I first started playing Yu-Gi-Oh, my entire dream was to like top a large-scale tournament with Exodia. I was like 12 years old, Legacy of Darkness had just come out, and I was like, oh my god, Exodia. After I watched that first episode of Yu-Gi-Oh, that dream never died, you know, and I went in and out of Yu-Gi-Oh for years and years.
20 years later.
Then, when I was like, how old was I, 19, in 2012, Jarrell Winston almost won Worlds with Exodia, and I saw him with that deck, and I was like, I gotta play Exodia again. Okay. Ever since then, it's been my dream to just keep grinding and eventually get there.
Okay, no, sounds good. Sounds good. But yeah, your deck is very nasty. Anyone that is caught off guard will lose. You actually went like undefeated for a little bit at regionals with the deck.
I started pretty well. I started 3-1, and then yeah, things did not go so well after that.
Sorry, that was my fault.
Oh, that's okay.
But okay, let's go into the deck profile. I'm sure you guys are eager to see it, and we'll see what happens.
So since we're playing a deck that goes second, we want to play cards that break boards. So we start with Nibiru.
That is really greedy.
Yeah, because we're maining these, most people don't expect you to have this in game one, so it really is quite effective. And the fact that it actually summons a token to your opponent's side of the field is actually quite important. We'll see that with the card coming up later on.
But why do you, like, what if you play against like a deck that does not have like a combo-oriented play and you draw into them?
Sure. Well, the thing with a mind deck like this is all you really care about are cards that can negate spell and trap activations.
I guess you just don't want to die.
I also don't want to die. So if I'm playing some deck that, say, only summons once or twice, I'm totally fine with that. I think I can play through that anyway, and I've got a lot of other cards that can help me out with that.
Okay.
Yeah. The next monster we play is 3 Planet Pathfinder. This basically, if you tribute it as a spell speed 1 effect, you can add a field spell card from your deck to your hand.
Alright.
It's basically copies 2 through 4 of Terraforming. And of course, our victory condition is Exodia.
Exodia, oh my god, you actually Exodia'd me once during the regional.
I did, yeah.
I was waiting for something. I was like, maybe you're hoping for a deck out. Wasn't completely sure, but because I've been decking people out all day, and I thought I was getting a taste of my own medicine at that tournament. I was like, oh my god, and then you just killed me. It's like, oh, top deck reveal. I'm like, I'm dead. No, legit Exodia. Okay.
Yeah. And there's 2 major advantages with playing Exodia. The first is that the win condition happens all in your hand, so you have an extra spell or trap zone to use, unlike, say, if you're playing like Wave Motion Cannon. Okay. And the second thing is that once you actually use the real winning condition card of this deck, it's actually faster to win with Exodia than it is with Wave Motion Cannon.
Yes.
If you draw no Exodia pieces, you can usually win in 4 turns, which is half the amount of time you need for a Wave Motion Cannon.
Yes. Oh man, I can't wait to get there.
And the next cards are the trap cards. So we have, of course, 1 Metaverse. This being limited, of course, really decrease the power and consistency of the deck, but there are alternate ways, obviously, like with Planet Pathfinder, to play this deck, so it still is playable. Then, of course, we have the Solemn package.
Solemn.
Yeah.
Half your life. Halving in life matters.
Yes, in this deck, you always want to be at lower life than your opponent. The other counter trap at play is 2 Dark Bribes. These will actually be taken out and put replaced with Solemn Scolding, which also pays your life points, and it's similar to Solemn Judgment.
Cool.
Of course, for spell cards, we've got the
most annoying card in the game right now.
Yeah. This card really, it's not that difficult for a lot of decks to out if you're a knowledgeable player and you know how to play against this deck, but if your opponent is taken by surprise, then it's usually an easy win.
Yeah,
and
I can attest to that.
And the other great thing is, since we're playing a going second variant, your opponent is very likely going to have some monsters, so you can just slap this on your very first turn, and then its effect applies, and then you're
sounds good.
Smooth sailing after there. We play 3 Extravagance, of course. We don't special summon from the extra deck, and banishing that is totally fine. We just want to draw those 2 cards. Our second breaking board card is Dark Ruler No More. Again, we're just scared about those, big Dragon Link boards or big Pendulum boards, and if we can just turn off all their monsters for a turn and then activate Mystic Mind right after, we're good to go. Then we play 3 Pot of Duality.
Cool.
Awesome to resolve after you've already activated an Extravagance. Still get that search. Then we have 3 goddess called Oracle.
This card is really annoying. Oh my god. If you do not play 3 copies of an out, you will never get that out.
That's pretty much true. So if your opponent doesn't hard draw, say a Twin Twisters or an MST or something like that in their opening hand, and then you resolve this, and they only have 3 copies of that card in their deck, then there's mathematically almost no way they can win that game. And because you're also playing all your counter traps like Solemn Judgment and Dark Bribe, even if they happen to have 1 out, that's not enough.
So if you guys want to know what this card does, is that once per turn you get to use, what's that card? Spiral Drones on your opponent. You rearrange the top 3 cards of their deck. And if you see those cards at like Twin Twisters and whatnot, you're going to put them not at the top of the deck anymore, and therefore they are not getting their Twin Twisters. If they only put in 2 Twin Twisters, they are never going to see Twin Twisters because it's never going in their hand anymore. I remember that in our game, you had 3 bad choices, and that was the only time I actually got the card out. You had Epidemic Eradicator and 2 cards that pop 2 cards, and you're like, nah, I gotta give it the Eradicator because you can't put a monster out. But yes, this card is scary, really, really scary. Anyone that plays against this deck should hit this card, or else you're never gonna win. Yep.
Absolutely, yeah. And the real actual sort of win condition card of this deck is Draw of Fate.
Exodia!
So what this card allows you to do is that if your opponent has more life and has the strongest monster on board, you can activate this. Then you pick 3 cards with different names, randomly stack them on top of your deck, you draw a card, and then you cannot set for the rest of the turn. You can only activate 1 card or effect for the rest of the turn. So obviously, because this can search any card in your deck, not only does it search your Exodia pieces, but it searches you all your other lock pieces.
And you can also add other copies of Draw of Fate to keep the chain going.
Exactly. So if you're in a comfortable position, then you can search, say, 2 Exodia pieces in this card or 2 lock pieces in a Draw of Fate, and then you're basically set your entire draws for the rest of the game. So if you resolve this card, and if your opponent doesn't kill you on their next turn, you basically won the game.
May as well just call this card Heart of the Cards.
Yeah, allows you to like summon your inner Yugi, you know, and just sack people and stack whatever you need.
Stack your deck, literally. But now one thing I want to point out about this card is that it's only for the rest of the turn after this card resolves. Then you can't set spells and traps, and you don't activate 1 effect. So you can actually play everything else and then still play this card.
Yeah, you always want to play this last in your turn. You want to make sure you set all your back row first before you activate.
Yeah, don't scrub out, guys.
And of course, we play 3 Field Barrier in this deck.
See, that was the nasty check that I was like, oh, you just open turn, like you go first, you drop a Field Barrier and a Mystic Mine. Not in that order, the other order. And I was like, why? Mystic Mine tries to blow itself up, and then all of a sudden, it can't because Field Barrier is there, and then it passes over.
So this card basically allows you to win against better players who realize if they don't summon a monster, then you can't normally play mine. And this allows you to activate this, and at that point, you're sort of in a game state where your opponent can still sort of activate Ash Blossom and certain other hand traps, but they're never going to still summon a monster to the board, so you're kind of still pseudo-lock them. And it's still better, obviously, than not playing the mine at all.
Okay.
And once you have your setup, of course, this card will protect your mind from Twin Twisters and MST and trap cards that blow up spell traps, all that kind of stuff.
The scariest card against this is probably Cosmic.
Absolutely, yeah. This card doesn't do anything versus Cosmic Cyclone. In fact, what your opponent can actually do is just banish your Mystic Mine under this card.
You can't activate another field spell.
And you can activate another field spell, and then you're pretty much locked out of your own game plan, which really does suck.
Okay.
And the last 3 spells are Terraforming, Magic Reflector, and Upstart Goblin. Magic Reflector puts a counter on any face-up spell you have, so you'll put it on your Mystic Mine, and then if Mystic Mine were to be destroyed, you would take the counter off instead. Terraforming searches your Mystic Mine, and Upstart draws you a card and makes your opponent's life points higher, which is important for Draw of Fate.
Okay, well, that is very interesting. I totally would build it differently, but that's just me. This is your build, though.
Yeah.
And hopefully you guys enjoy playing this online. Okay, let's take a look at your extra deck.
So the extra deck
is it even important? You just want to spam right through it.
Yeah, it's pretty much not really relevant at this point. Let's
just go through it.
Some people decide to play the whole Link Gardna and then go into that Link monster that prevents battle or effect damage, but it doesn't really matter. So I just play
bait, and bait. Okay, so I'm not even gonna bother with the list on the side because, yeah, this is all meant to bait out your opponent. Most of it's gonna get banished by a Pot of Extravagance anyway.
Yeah, you do need to play 15 because I have had duels where I've resolved all 3 Extravagances, so make sure to do that.
So 2, 2, and 1. That's 5 card draws right there. Okay, let's take a look at your side deck.
Okay, so side deck has a lot of cards when you're going first, because good opponents again will realize you're playing a going second deck, so they'll make you go first. So first we have Summon Limit.
That is pretty nasty.
Which again is another card against any aggressive combo deck. It's kind of like a mine in the sense of they usually can't do much once they summon their first Link monster. So you're pretty happy about that. The next side card we have is Royal Decree. Royal Decree is in here. Only one copy because you can search it with Draw of Fate. And it's against any decks that play a lot of Solemn cards. So maybe you're playing against Guru Control, could be playing against the Mirror even, and you basically want to stop your opponent from negating your own cards. Or if you're playing against Salamangreat, you can also side this in and it stops Rage and Roar if you resolve this first.
Sounds good.
Next sided card is Macrocosmos, and this is here only for True Draco. True Draco has so many ways to pop spells and traps without even summoning monsters, so you gotta have this in there because otherwise they can just blow up your mind all day. Next card we have is Dark Sacrifice.
What's your fiend that you're sending?
So it actually doesn't send a fiend, it actually sends a level 3 or lower Dark monster.
I was associated with BA.
Yeah. And basically all your Exodia pieces are targets for this card. Now you might be thinking, hold on, well if you're sending Exodia pieces to the grave, how are you going to win? Well, you play with this card, Jar of Avarice. So Jar of Avarice allows you to pick 5 cards in your grave, shuffle them back in, and then draw a card. This can also be sided in if your opponent happens to play cards that discard from your hand. Maybe they're playing the Neo Space combo, the Aqua Dolphin, and all that. So in case your Exodia piece lands in the grave, you have a way of still winning the game, because this deck doesn't have any other win conditions.
Hey, dude, you can deck them out. That's what I did.
I find that unless your opponent is playing like one out to Mystic Mine in their deck, decking them out just isn't going to work. Eventually they're going to draw their out and they're going to OTK. Other cards going first are also 3 Demise of the Land. Again, I prefer not to main deck this card because going second, your opponent will usually have an established board already, and if they're a good player, they might not need to special summon anything, they'll just start attacking you for game. But if you're going first, it's great. You just flip it as soon as they make their first special summon, and usually that's the end of the game at that point.
No, that's legit. I like maining this card.
Yeah.
My personal preference, because I don't mind going first or second. Even if you go second with this card, if they're not killing you, you can still set this card and still run it off, and then it'll still die. This card cannot be Ash, which is like very important.
It is, yeah. That is the strength of that over the Metaverse
or the planet.
Planet Pathfinder.
Yes, that's the one.
And our last card that we play is Unending Nightmare.
Why this card in particular?
So it's another card that's good against True Draco because you can pop their diagrams, so it prevents them from searching out the right cards. It's excellent against Pendulum when you go first because you're just going to pop all their scales. It's also decent against Sky Striker because you can use it to pop their Area 0 and their Multi-Roll, which are cards that remove the amount of monsters that they have, so you want to make sure that you clear that out of the way.
I think another good thing is that you lose life points.
Yes, and the greatest thing about Unending Nightmare is that anytime you play, say, a normal spell, you can target your own normal spells with this. If you have Field Barrier on the field and you have Mystic Mine, what you can actually do is you can target your Mystic Mine under the Field Barrier repeatedly, over and over again, and then you'll eventually get to lower life points if your opponent has activated a Solemn that game or something like that. And so you keep on activating this until your life points are lower, and then you can activate Draw Fate.
Draw Fate, everybody. Such a cheap card. It's like, what, a quarter?
So this card right now is 25 cents online, and as far as I know, nobody else is playing this card in any deck.
People, like, the moment you play online with this one, you reveal 3 pieces of Exodia, they will start swearing at you.
Oh, yeah. Because I think for a lot of people, it's such a slap in the face to lose to Exodia.
You have 5 turns. You literally tell them you have 5 turns to play this game, and that's it. If you don't have 5 turns, the game is over.
And so basically, the way that works, again, we can kind of show this here.
So you do, this is your first one. Your first one will look something like this. And the second one's just all 3 pieces of Exodia.
Exactly. So all you have to do is your first resolution, you search these 3. Eventually you're going to draw into the other Draw Fate, and you activate that again, you search the other 3 Exodia pieces, and you win out. And that's assuming you didn't draw any pieces to begin with in your opening hand.
So it's like that. First, activate Draw Fate, put these 3, and then once you get the 2 pieces in the last one, you activate Draw Fate again, you put these ones, so draw 1, and the next 2 turns, that's 4 turns. 4 turns to get all 5 pieces of Exodia, once you get 1 Draw Fate. Really
super
nasty.
consistent, really fast. I almost never go into time with this deck, and I used to in the previous builds of this deck before I was playing this Exodia stuff, and it's really great. Just try not to play Sky Striker because they will take forever and you might go into time.
But So much, Yvonne, for showcasing your deck profile. Well, rest in peace, Yugioh Pro. You guys are going to not enjoy your practice run and probably going to get a lot of no Exodia type rooms coming up. But yeah, any shout outs you want to give?
I would like to shout out Kazuki Takahashi and Drell Winston, because without those two guys, I wouldn't be playing Yu-Gi-Oh right now.
All right. Shout out to those guys, and if you guys enjoyed this video, hit that thumbs up. If you guys are going to lose some Exodia, you can hit thumbs down if you want. And if you guys want to see more stuff from MST.TV, I'm going to showcase to you guys my variant of this deck that I'm playing online. It's really mean, very similar, but of course I want to give tribute to the OG player that built this thing. So Yvonne, thank you so much, and don't forget to hit subscribe, ding notification bell, and I'll see you guys in the next one.
My grandfather